Hi folks, Brendan Anderson here. Welcome back to day 2 of my 7-day property video series. In this series we chat about the different property investment strategies that you may or may not have heard of and things that you might want to consider before jumping into one investment style. Or maybe you just want to diversify your portfolio and you're just looking for that next investment style. So with episode 2 we're going to chat about the rent-to-rent formula and what that is and how it works. So the rent-to-rent is effectively you go up to a landlord who is maybe struggling to get tenants in his property, long-term tenants. It's a traditional buy-to-let they've got, and they're just looking, they like the idea of a guaranteed rent. So you offer them a guaranteed rent and it's usually enough to cover like the mortgage and maybe give them a little bit more, and you take that property on. You take on all the risk of void, you take on the management of the property, the maintenance, and you just give them a guaranteed rent for a fixed term. It might be a year, it might be 2, it might be 3, whatever the negotiation deems, whatever you're both happy with. And why would you do that? Because, well, the reason you would want to do that is because you can then take that property and turn it into a serviced accommodation unit or an HMO. And tomorrow we're going to chat about serviced accommodation, and the next day 4 we're going to chat about the HMO strategy, so stick around for that. But effectively what you're doing is you're turning it into something else. You've got the permission to turn it into a corporate let with your company. So what you do with this strategy is you might go, right, I want to turn it into a serviced accommodation because this area is really good for it, or an HMO because I know that there's demand for that. And that's the key. You need to know there's demand for whatever strategy you're going to employ so that you can almost guarantee yourself that return or give or mitigate as much risk as possible. So let's talk about the pros and cons. So one of the pros for this is it's a really low barrier entry. You don't need much, and in fact it can be a true no money down strategy. You could team up with an investor. You've got the skills to do everything, all the negotiation, get it all legally binding, contracted up, and everything else, and you take on an investor and you both get a bit of cut of it. So you're getting two heads together. He's got the money, you've got no money, but you've got the skills, and it can be a true no money down strategy. The only and it's a win-win for everyone involved. You're getting a bit of money from the rent. The landlord's getting his guaranteed rent, so he's happy or she's happy, and you have control of that property, but you don't own it, so you don't have to worry about any of the ownership costs. All you've got to do is cover the bills and the mortgage. Cons of this strategy is it can be a little bit expensive as well, depending on, because you might need to add a refurb. The reason this property might not be letting very well is because it might be a little bit dated, it might be a little need of a refurbishment. So you might need to take on, and especially if you're going for a sort of higher end serviced accommodation, so like an Airbnb kind of thing, if there's a particular demand for that. Or if it's an HMO, you're going to need to go through the HMO compliance as well, fire systems, fire doors, fireboards, all that sort of stuff, and it all adds up. So you need to know what you need to get started. But that being said, it's still cheaper than your traditional buy-to-let, 25% deposit. So where you might consider a rent-to-rent would be a tourist hotspot for a serviced accommodation, for example. It might be the Highlands of Scotland, and it might be a city centre location, say in Birmingham or London even, or Glasgow, somewhere like that, where you're going to get a lot of business people travelling for business meetings. Again, that's another great way to target serviced accommodation markets because they don't want to stay in hotel chains, or they just want their own apartment. With HMOs, you might want to target a place next to a hospital where there's a lot of staff there, so they need somewhere to stay, or contract workers or something like that. Again, you just need to know the area and know the demand and know what's available. Alternatively, you can team up with someone that does this for a living. Like there are businesses out there that find you serviced accommodations, rent-to-rents and all that sort of stuff. So you can team up with them, they can find you the deal and you just front the money for it, and you both get a win-win out of it as well. So I hope that's covered a little bit up of what the rent-to-rent strategy is. If you've got any questions, pop it below. And as I said, tomorrow we're going to chat more about serviced accommodation and what's involved with that. So if you want to know more about serviced accommodation and then HMO on day 4 and moving forward, then drop in and drop us comments and ask any questions that you want. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.